Welcome to Declutter for Change, the podcast where we clear the visible and invisible clutter from your mind, body, soul, and home to make room for the life you actually want to live and love. I'm your host, Heather Clark. We are joined by Marilu Wren to explore how to stop fighting your nervous system and start building a foundation of safety that allows your body to finally let go. Marilu is a well-being practitioner and mother of 4 whose work centers on helping people feel safer in their bodies so that they can move out of stress, overwhelm, and inner conflict with more ease. Through her lens of Energyology, she explores how emotional and energetic layers shape our internal landscape, helping you understand your pattern rather than fighting your nervous system. Using her body-led infinity protocol, Marilu waves together EFT tapping, grounding, and meditation to soften protective responses without force. Her practical approach focuses on the principle that once safety is restored at the foundation, clarity and resolution emerge naturally. Hello, Marilu. How are you doing?
I'm awesome. Excited to be here.
Yes, thank you so much for coming on, and thank you so much for our topic that we will be discussing today, because I'm excited for this because I know this is something that truly has helped me in the past, which is why it was on my list of things to get experts on this. So if you can actually let me know and let the listeners know how you even got into EFT tapping and how you got into being a coach and stuff, because pretty sure as we're younger, going through school, that wasn't on the list of things that, you know, the doctor, the lawyer, all that stuff. So let the listeners and myself know, how did you get into this?
Well, primarily I was a mum. I've got 4 kids ranging from 16 to 28. And our divide in the house is what we call blue and pink. And it was, you know, my husband was earning, my second husband was earning, and I was raising my kids. And I hadn't really worked since I was 23, so I didn't really have any qualifications. So my husband had neck surgery 16 years ago. I've been with him for 20 years by then, for 4 years by then. And whilst the surgery in itself was successful, they touched his spinal cord and he had a spinal stroke. Ooh. So he went from being a very fit, very strong, hard landscaper to being riddled with chronic pain. Came out, his hands had been dipped in burning oil. And he was in ICU for 10 days and then was on opiates for about 13 years, which eventually he weaned himself off. So I went from being a mum to, geez, okay, what can I do here to support, because you couldn't work at the time. So I then went into a 10-year journey of entrepreneurship. I designed children's clothes, which had kind of been my dad's business. So I did wholesale, retail. I did that for 4 or 5 years. I then went into coastal soft furnishings because I live by the coast in south of England. And again, did retail. And then someone sort of headhunted me to open a coastal lettings business, which was very optimum at the time. So because I was used to setting up businesses, I did that. And then she turned out to be an awful narcissist. And that was the most stressful thing. And it ended really badly and extremely stressfully. So I'd had kind of total burnout. And I just remember saying to myself, I cannot set up another business. I've done 3. I'd given it my all. I'd juggled it with parenthood, which I didn't want to do. I resented work, taking away from my kids. I resented my kids from taking away from work, that awful juggle that we have. And I thought, I don't have it in me, but I want to do something. My kids were a little older then, and I wanted to really make a difference. I was sort of in perimenopause, coming into menopause, and I thought, I want to serve. I remember saying for years, I want to serve. And I'd come across tapping as one of the modalities I encouraged my husband to do, because I'm very holistically minded and I use natural medicine with my kids. So he tried acupuncture, homeopathy, osteopathy, and I remember coming off tapping, which was Nick Orkner, which is the tapping solution, which is the one you tend to see online. And I thought, my God, this is just extraordinary. I'm getting goosebumps now just thinking about it. Thinking what a powerful but simple, technique to use. In fact, I probably used it more myself than I did my husband. He is quite opposite to me in the way he thinks about sort of natural medicine stuff, which is cool. It's his journey. It's not mine. So I initially trained as a kinesiologist, and then we had COVID, which complicated things. And then I trained in EFT. And what I loved about it is it takes all the really powerful aspects of kinesiology, but makes them really accessible and much easier. So not only can I do it with one-to-one and groups, but the beauty is the client can then take it home and use it on themselves in any situation that they find challenging.
Mm-hmm. As somebody who has done it myself in many, many stressful, many different aspects, like I was a self-rep for going through court and stuff like that. And listen, my body had red dots everywhere. Like it was just red everywhere because I was tapping. But with that, I found that I think it got me out of my mind and made that like hand-body connection for me to get myself, because again, when you're in those stressful situations, when you're in those like major life moments, you're in your head. Like there is nowhere else you're in. So I think tapping takes you out of it in a sense of, okay, yes, you're talking, yes, you're doing the tapping, but it's that connection of, okay, here you are, you're in the present, you're right here, you're right now. So do you find that anyone that comes to you, it's a lot harder for them to get out of that mind part of it and be more into the body, because it is a very body-mind connection?
I think it's a different way of looking at things, certainly. And I think people are used to talk therapy, what I would call a top-down therapy. So they come through the mind, they want to know to articulate. We can all say how we feel, but talking about it doesn't necessarily shift it. Sometimes it does. We all, I think to have an hour of talking, especially as a woman, goodness, to be able to say these are all the things, I think is beautiful. I think to give someone that space is extraordinary and can shift. But because I work with sort of traumas and old stories and paradigms, it is stored in the body. Your body holds your stories. So EFT is what we call a bottom-up therapy. So you're coming through the body. And also when one has trauma, and don't forget, trauma doesn't have to be huge. You can have big trauma or little t trauma. It's something that is shocking or stressful. There's a Broca's area in the left part of the brain that shuts down. So which is all to do with being able to verbalize and articulate. So often we can't articulate what the issue is. So going to something like talk therapy, we can't make sense of it in that way, but our body does. And this is why, for people that do know Nick Ortner and the tapping solution, which is awesome. So EFT is slightly more than that, because you have the generic, even though I feel all this stress, even though I'm really struggling at the moment I feel like a pressure on my chest. It's quite generic, whereas the emotional freedom technique is very particular. How you and I are going to respond to seeing a car accident or having our purse stolen, it's going to be very different because our experiences are different.
Yes.
And also in that moment, whilst you may not be, if you have the freeze response and you may not be able to, again, articulate or remember, our body remembers. It remembers what it's smelling at the time, what it's hearing, what it's seeing. You just had an ice cream, or there's a train going past, or it was really hot and you were wearing a jumper. And so we can tap on that, even though I've just had an ice cream and I can hear a train going past and I'm really feeling hot and sticky. When I think of this event, I'm doing okay right now. So we don't actually have to talk about the event. We can talk about the physical experience you were having at that moment.
And I think that's a lot of what I know I went through. Because it was funny because even just knowing the route I was taking to the family court, I could just feel it in my body. I'm like, dude, you're just dropping things off. Like we were done by that point, but my body was still remembering. I'm like, whoa, it's okay. You're good. Like you're safe. You're like, this is just dropping things off. Everything's good. Like everything turned out now, especially now, years later, everything is great. But it's so funny how much the body does store, how much of it, like you said, our brains can't articulate exactly what's going on, but all of a sudden, as we're driving the same route that you did every single time you had to go in front of a judge, or I had to go in front of a judge, it was the same route, the same whatever. So I was like, all right, we're going on a different route now. So I ended up taking
beautiful. And that's a great solution, to be honest, because your amygdala, I did a course the other day talking about the triple warmer, which is a meridian that gets involved in your fight and flight. That's your protector part. That's last time you did this, your heart was racing, you were worried about this, that, and the other. So we're going to protect you. We're going to try and convince you in every way we can not to do that. I mean, one of the stories I told in this workshop, there's a was he New Zealand, Australian neuroscientist, professor who likes to deal with pain. And I came across him because of my husband. And he was walking in the bush and left, right, and going past everything. And he brushed what he thought was a twig. He just felt this thing on his leg and carried on walking. And then within sort of 100 yards, he'd collapsed because actually what wasn't a twig was actually a snake bite by one of the second most deadly snakes. So his body hadn't realized it was, and it's all to do with the messages of pain pathways. But that is your fight and flight system, is all part of that pain management. So then obviously he gets rescued and taken away and recovered. But then months later, he was going through the bush, walking along, left, right. And his leg, same position, did brush past a twig. But his body went, ooh, last time this happened, it was a lethal snake bite and you almost died. And so that management system then riddled his body with pain, even though there was no need to. Because it went, last time you almost died and we weren't on it. So I'm on it now.
You're like, I am on it right now.
And I'm going to flood you with pain. So you know that, you need to be safe and you need to get to a hospital. It's the body's interpretation of something. And that protector part for you, there's a whole, that's my work, is all around that protector part.
Yeah. And but it's so crazy. So of course, like you said, like me going a different route to it, knowing, this is just me dropping off some papers because this is just how it has to happen. And all that stuff. I'm not having to go in front of a judge. I'm not having to fight anything or defend myself of anything. It was one of those things where I'm like, nah, you know how to do this. And it's because I'm, at the time, especially, I was learning, like deep dived into like things that could help me because I'm on the same holistic side of things. So I'm like, okay, no, what can I do? And I'm like, okay, well, first I'll do a different route. But what are some things when people are in a safe situation, that it's not a snake bite, that it's not going in front of a judge, that it is a very safe area, but again, their body goes, like instantly. What are some things they can do in that moment? Like me driving a different route, etc. Like, what are some things they can do?
One of the simplest techniques, which actually comes from my kinesiology training and not tapping, is there are 2 points on the forehead. So above each eye, so between the eyebrow and the hairline, you just gently rest 2 fingers on those 2 spots. And I always say it's so gentle, it's like you're touching a sleeping baby you didn't want to wake. We're not pushing, we're not massaging, you're just holding these points. And what this does is it brings your blood flow, it brings the focus and energy away from the back of the head, which is very emotive and is all about the drama and trying to, I can feel, I've got all the feels around this.
Yep.
And it brings it to your prefrontal cortex, which is all about your logical, your processing, and your ideas. So let's say you and I had seen an accident and it triggered us for different reasons, because once you'd been in an accident and I hadn't, and I'm okay. And it's bringing it forward going, and then your brain's allowed to look at it going, well, this is really awful. And that the bonnet's really crumpled, but I'm not in that and I'm okay. You can start to have that reasoning around the event. And what's nice about this, and this technique's called ESR, emotional stress release, is you can do it around a past event. I've done it with someone who was bitten by a dog. So again, you're able to reason, even though that inner child is going, oh, I don't like dogs because this is what happened to me. It's able to go, but actually I was 7. And actually since that time, for the last 30 years, I've never been bitten by a dog. So it's okay. You can do it in the present moment when you're having that lived experience of stress. And also, say, for example, you're going to the courthouse or going for a job interview, or anything like that that's in the future, you can hold these points and you can imagine you doing that. So you're kind of having this pre-play of the event. So you could say, even though, you're on your head, and you can have this conversation with yourself, even though all the past times have been really stressful, I'm just going to remind myself that I am just dropping off papers. But by holding that point, you can also just put the flat of your hand on the whole of your forehead, which is how this was discovered. I
was just going to say that usually, when you're
exactly.
Now, of course, listeners, you can't see what we're doing. We're both literally putting our hands.
I'm trying to verbalize. Yeah, but it's
that hand. When you're stressed, like listeners, when you've been stressed or anything like that, when you and you have that thing, and your forehead goes into your hand. That's what we're doing right now, just for the visual.
Yeah. But this doctor in this mental institution had all these patients turning up and doing exactly that, head in hands, woe is me, all these things are going wrong, downloading. And then he hadn't said anything. And then they'd get up and go, oh, I feel fine now. And he's like, what the heck just happened? Because I had done nothing. And then he realized it was bringing this energy, this blood flow to that part of the brain that can make sense. So if you're going into an event or presenting or anything like that, you can hold your head in that way and imagine yourself in all its glory. Imagine, let's say you're going to present at a workshop or something and you're a bit nervous. Go, I know what I'm wearing. I know my notes are in order. I'm wearing an absolute boss outfit. I can see myself striding up to the platform. Everyone's really warm and welcoming. I can see myself, you're imagining all this. I can see myself being really relaxed. I almost don't need my notes. I remember exactly what I need to say. People are laughing. They're asking questions. So you pre-play this whole thing whilst holding this part that helps you be logical about it. So when it comes to it, your body's like, I've got this. There's no need to stress because I know how this plays out. I've played this out already. It's really powerful.
Well, and I like that too, because I'm somebody who has, I think it's called aphantasia or whatever, where I cannot visualize. So when people say, oh, visualize yourself in the future, I'm like, dude, I can't, like not even a little bit.
So when people say that, when was your last birthday?
Last year.
Okay, so what's a stupid question? So what did you do on that birthday?
Don't remember.
Okay.
I was like, I'm not going to be very good with this because there's certain things where I'm like, my recall memory is like the short term of it. It's like, I don't even remember what I had for breakfast. Did I even have breakfast? And I forget to eat, all that stuff. I cannot visualize. But if there's, as we were talking earlier, if there's a smell, if there's a sound, or if my body remembers some sort of whatever, I can pull, like, I can be like, I always compare it to Bruce Almighty, the movie where he's in that filing cabinet and God's like, oh, your memory's in there. He goes, oh, okay, sure. And then he hits it and it opens up the drawer and all the memories come flooding in. That's me.
So you're
right now, as we're talking on this podcast, won't remember. Yeah. I smell something from when I was 5, when I was 12, when I was like 30 or whatever. Oh yeah, those memories, how we did it, perfect. But yeah, what I did last year for my birthday, I don't remember. Honestly.
So you're a kinesthetic learner, and I'm the same. I can remember a conversation, remember exactly where I was when I had it.
Yes. Yep. And I even directions for me, directions of, okay, don't tell me north or south. Give me the gas station's on the right-hand side. You're going to turn left. Like I'm very like, I got to have the things there because I don't know.
So that tapping with that, I remember seeing this and I remember feeling this and I'm wearing a pink sweater and I just had a burger and all that. Because your body is storing the memory with all those senses. So even though you can't verbalize it, it remembers how it felt.
Yep. And that's what you said earlier. It's like, you may not be able to like verbalize it, which I can't. Like you asked me what I was doing I don't remember, but this next birthday, I'd be like, oh, that's what we did. Oh yeah. I was wearing this. And all that can come in because like you said, the body stores that. Body connects everything together. So with the tapping, like when we're actually, head to toe tapping and back up and stuff like that, what is it actually doing, just as like a general, for the listeners who are like, they've heard of it, but they don't really know why they would be doing it? What is it doing to our body?
Okay. So we have an energy system called the meridians, which are 14 meridians that run through our body. 2 are separate, front and back, and the other 12 are connected. They're like a river of energy. It's what the traditional Chinese medicine is based on. It's where your life force, your qi is held. The meridians are what are used in acupuncture, acupressure, and also kinesiology, which is why it's all connected to my work. When we're tapping, and different people tap, some of us do the face and the collarbone and under the arm. We include the end of the fingernails. Those points that we tap on are meridian endings. When they evidence EFT, they use what they call sham points. So let's say they could tap on the tummy button, which is not a meridian ending. And they have proven that actually it is relevant where you tap. It's not just the act of tapping. So it's important we tap in the right place, which is the meridian endings. So I'll refer to science. I'm all for the traditional Chinese medicine, but I know that some people are more attached to the science of it. So they call it the premovascular system. And they have shown that the kinetic action of tapping on these pertinent points creates an energy through the connective tissue, specifically the collagen, so it doesn't dim the signal, and it takes that signal straight to the amygdala. which is all part of your fight and flight response. And it helps you reshape your neural pathways, and it soothes your nervous system. So even if you don't believe in tapping, it will work. It's not a belief thing. It's hugely evidence as 99% effective. It comes second to EMDR, but third was CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, which also has shown that you need like 10 or more of those sessions. EFT, what's great is it's quick. You can more often not address an issue in 3 sessions, and it's long lasting and it's effective. So there's a lady called Peter Stapleton who's made it her life's work just to evidence EFT, and it's now being taken into our NHS. It's great for PTSD and trauma, so it's used a lot for veterans and things like that.
That is fantastic. And so for me, like I said, I knew that was like the mind-body connection. And you were saying earlier about the tapping solution. That was one of the ones that I was like, okay, I saw it was helping for kids, because I even got my kids involved as well for a bit. Now, of course, they're teenagers and they don't listen to mom or anything mom says, but but when they were kids, it was a way for me to show them, like, this is not me saying it. You can go and watch this video. You can go and you just follow along, say the same words if you want, or just let them say the words. And it was something, I think maybe it was just, for me, it was a matter of, it allowed them to calm down in their own way. It allowed them to do their own thing and to adjust it. So when we have, some of us are parents and stuff like that, if we have children who are in the same, like, hyper part of it, or they're going through something that, a meltdown, a tantrum, as they say, is this something that could work with them as well?
Oh, kids are so receptive to it. Kids, it's awesome for kids. I would suggest keeping it quite simple. So you can just do tap on the points of the head and the chest, maybe leave the fingers out, or just do the fingers. All of these points are different meridians, which have different emotions, but you don't necessarily want to overcomplicate it. And what's beautiful with kids is you can do a thing called teddy tapping. So they don't necessarily have to do it on themselves. They can actually tap on a teddy, which I know sounds weird, having just explained about the kinetic action. So it feels odd. But for me, energy is not, I work with people on the other side of the world doing heart math, and, energy can be reached anywhere. And you can do lots of things. You can do imaginary tapping. You can do silent tapping. We do tapping for people, say, who are in an MRI, who can't physically touch themselves. So you imagine that you're tapping the points, which has the same. We can do surrogate tapping. But what's nice with the teddy is you tap on the points of the teddy, and for the children who might not be able to share for whatever reason, they're a bit embarrassed, or they can't articulate, or they don't really want to admit it, they can say, oh, Teddy had a really bad day. Someone laughed at Teddy in the playground and he really didn't like that, and it made him feel really icky in his tummy. But I love Teddy. Teddy's really good. And you can just do a really simple circuit. And there is something about the power of verbalizing an issue, even though I said earlier, sometimes we can't. I think the power of those words for kids to be able to open up is that connection between their emotions, and being able to verbalize it, I think, is amazing. But it does work with the teddies, but it does work on them as well. Another simple thing they can do is the Japanese finger hold. And I always forget the order. If you look it up online, it's like a colored, I think it's worry, fear, anger, self-esteem, and let's see if I can quickly look it up. And just
we'll also have this linked in the show notes. Listeners, don't worry about that. So I'll make sure that we get the proper link for this, just so that you also have the idea and the visuals of that as well. So, because I know a lot of people are like, you search something up and then you get like 20 million different things.
Yeah, so it's really simple, because I was saying earlier about the meridian endings. So the meridians let's backtrack a bit. Each meridian has an emotion attached to it. It also has a muscle, which is what we use in kinesiology. So what's beautiful about the fingers is that you have the thumb is your is all to do with your stomach and your spleen, which is about worries. So if your child is worried, just get them to hold the thumb, and they're making contact with that meridian ending. And I'd recommend just deep breathing, because again, it's one of my tips for later. When we breathe and we do nice slow deep breaths, the body comes out of that sympathetic nerve. It comes out of fight and flight. So worry is the thumb. The first finger is all to do with the kidneys and the bladder, which is about fear or anxiety. So if they're really anxious about something, just get them to hold their first finger. And they can do this like in class. You can do it under the desk. That's why I love the Japanese finger hold. The middle finger is all to do with anger. The ring finger is to do with sadness. And the little finger is to do with nervousness. So even if they don't know and they can't articulate, you can just quietly get them to go through the hand, holding the finger.
Now, again, we're an audio podcast.
Your right hand round your left thumb, so it's all enclosed, or even just the end. It's just nice, but it feels quite huggy, doesn't it? Just to hold your finger with
So what we're doing, listeners, is we are literally taking our one hand and wrapping it completely around just the finger or the thumb or like the pinky and stuff like that, just as a nice, and not too hard, just a nice.
Just making contact. It's a bit like when you're in school and you're making circuits. You're joining a circuit, you know? And also just pressing your thumb into the center of the opposite palm. Just singly helps. It's like what do they call that one? That's like the belly button. That's like happiness. They can just hold the thumb in the palm of the other hand. There's so many little easy techniques. There's a butterfly technique, which is basically putting your two hands on your chest, your upper chest, like a butterfly. So left and right. So
I've done this one for sure.
Yeah. So my left hand fingers are pointing. My right hand fingers are touching my left shoulder. And my left hand fingers are touching my right shoulder. And you can just then tap. So one, it feels like a hug. And you can just tap those. And then what's lovely with that is you can slow that tapping down, which really, especially if they're hyperventilating, if you slow that tapping down, it helps them to slow their breathing. And what's nice is where kind of my palm of my hand is the top of my kidney point. And as I said earlier, the kidney is all to do with fear and anxiety. And the other end of my kidney point is on the bottom of my foot. And grounding is everything. So this is my kind of go-to for someone who goes, I don't know what to do. It's like, just do that. Because not only are you crossing the body over, which it loves, you're tapping, you're able to match the rhythm with your breath, but also you're grounding yourself and connecting to that meridian to do with fear and anxiety.
And this is something that not only is it great for kids, but it's great for those who are in the midst. Like, let's say you just finished a meeting or whatever. Like we have a lot of high achieving motivated women that are listening to this and they're like, okay, but I only have like 2 minutes to do something. I only have whatever. That you can do in the 2 minutes. You can take those 2 minutes. You can do it in the car with your children. Like that's what I've done. And I was like, okay, this is where I'm going to do it. And that's literally what I've done. Just waiting for my daughter to come to the car. And I've done the butterfly thing because it's just something that I had just finished something. I didn't even have enough time to process what was going on. So when I finally sat down, because I was like, oh, go, because that was my life at the time. And it was like, okay, now that I've stopped, my car's off, my everything, I'm in a safe spot. I can do this. I can do this while I wait for her to come in the car. And it was such a huge grounding in the moment feeling for me to just be able to go, okay, we've got this.
And you can just add that I'm safe because it's because the other end of it is on the ground, and that's, you know, all my work is about safety. And often again that flight has been triggered, but like beautifully you were saying, going to the courthouse and you had that inner narrative going and you're saying it's cool, you know, we're fine, we're just cropping off papers.
No, you're fine, you're good.
but that's what you're doing with that butterfly. That's a beautiful addition. It's like, I'm safe right here, right now. I'm sitting in the car waiting for my daughter and I'm safe. You're talking to the protector part, and the protector part is the one that's triggering that fast heartbeat. It's triggering the shortness of breath. It's triggering all that worry. And I think, and I get it, the running around, the running the business and parenthood and all of that. And our body facilitates that. We pick the child up, we do the shopping, we type the note, we hold the meeting. Our body is useful for doing all of those things.
Yep.
But actually, again, I view the body differently because it is holding our stories. And for me, it's a whole point of EFT is a somatic conversation. And I'll say to someone, so let's say we were dealing with all those times you went to the courthouse and you were triggered. Let's say you hadn't surmounted that. And I'd say, okay, when you think about going to the courthouse, how does that feel in your body? And you go, oh my goodness, it's like a black, heavy cannonball in my stomach and I can feel it dragging me down. Or it's like a fire in my heart that I have to get away from. Or it's like my legs feel tingly, so it doesn't feel safe. That's what we tap on. your body is talking to you. So for me, it's those somatic conversations. So whilst we've talked about the ice cream, the train, the wearing the pink jumper, this is a different kind of somatic conversation. Where is your body holding the stress, the belief, the emotional block around that situation that we happen to be talking about? Let's say it's a lady who was bitten by the dog. When you think of being near a dog or a spider, let's take a spider phobia, dealt with that, or getting on a plane, because your fear of a spider might be their quickness. My fear of a spider might be the length of their legs and their hairiness. So, and then it's feeling it. You might want just to run and feel sick, and I might just totally freeze and feel heavy. So all those reactions we have are all deeply personal, and that's what you tap on in tapping.
That is okay. So when you say spiders, I am so not afraid of spiders, or like there's no creature that I'm like, oh my God, get it away. But my children are the funniest when it comes to spider. And I almost wonder if it's theirs or if it's something, because their father and aunt over on his side, very afraid of spiders. Can we inherit other people's fears energetically that they end up becoming our own?
100%.
Okay. Because I was like, why are you guys so afraid of spiders?
Yeah, and I'm really glad you brought this up, because I got some stats around this, because I think in the show notes you're saying that I call myself an energyologist. So I look at the terrain, the emotional and energetic terrain that dictates the way we behave. So we have our own stories, which we've talked about, but also we have epigenetics, which is stuff that we inherit. We have ancestral, we have past lives, we have lots of things. But to give you some stats around what you're talking, the most simple one is the cherry blossom with the mice. And they did an experiment where I think they gave mice electric shock whilst exposing them to the smell of cherry blossom. 7 generations down the line, so they'd never met this original mouse, those mice were still fearful of this cherry blossom smell because they inherited the fear. So putting that into human terms, pregnant mothers who developed PTSD after 9/11 gave birth to children who not only had compromised cortisol levels, but they were also more easily disrupted by loud noises and unfamiliar people. Children of PTSD mothers are 3 times more likely to be diagnosed with PTSD and 3 to 4 times more likely to struggle with depression and anxiety.
And again, I absolutely believe that for sure.
A real life version, the young people born after 94 in Rwanda experienced the same symptoms of PTSD as those who witnessed and survived the brutality, who'd never seen it. So absolutely, epigenetically,
yeah. There's another book, and I'm sure you've probably read this as well, but I think it's called "It Didn't Start with Me" or "Didn't Start with You" or something like that.
One of my favorite books.
Yes, like
really powerful.
That one, the one that sticks out to me is the gentleman whose father or grandfather had passed away because he got electrocuted because he was working and on the hydro lines and stuff like that. Yeah. And he never went near the hydro lines. He never, but anytime it was electrical or whatever, he had a absolute fear of that. And he goes, and it wasn't until he realized and researched the death of his grandfather and stuff that he's like, oh, that's why I have it.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, and it makes sense. And this is exactly what we're talking about. Like, and again, I will link that book in the show notes, listeners, because that was a fantastic book.
Honestly, one of the most fascinating books I've read. It really informed one of the last workshops I did. And I think in that, you think, well, he must have known that his grandfather, but there were stories. I think there was one guy, and I'm terrible at remembering stuff like this, which is why I need notes. I think it was something to do with ice or snow, and he was really fearful of it. And then he did the research and he discovered he'd had a great uncle who'd gone to the Arctic or died or something, but he didn't even know this guy existed, let alone how he died. But these memories. But what's beautiful about that and the work I did in my workshop is it doesn't have to be a huge process to release this. It's just acknowledging within meditation and doing this sort of somatic work, this isn't mine to hold. You know, I appreciate it, but I'm handing it back to the person. When I tend to do this work in meditation, it's handing it back with gratitude, going, this story is not mine, and just separating yourself energetically from it.
But I find that in order to get to that step, we have to have that pause to understand that.
Oh, yes.
As much as, you know, I've done that so many times. Like, this is also something that we've discussed in the human design episode as well. Is just a matter of, are you designed with an open center where you do absorb other people's energy and stuff like that? And of course, we all absorb people's energy to a certain degree. So it's like, is this mine? Or is this my mother's or my grandmother, especially being female? You know, most of my listeners are female. So we were in our mother who was in pregnancy in our grandmother. So that's a lot of genetics that we had to deal with.
Yeah.
And so like when you look at it, and like especially for me around, like I'm going to say the first one that really went, what the heck is this even mine, is around money. And I know that, you know, hearing as an adult certain stories of my grandmother and just how like, you know, jealous of other people that, you know, their very next door neighbor, he owned 3 McDonald's, you know, the daughter got to go on Greece for her 16th birthday type of thing. So they always had money, whatever, but there was a jealousy there. So I'm like, when I was like looking at other people, I'm like, oh, well, they can do that because of what? I'm like, whoa, that's not even yours. I was like, you know that people with money are awesome, because those who have money and are awesome humans just do more like better things with that money. So like for me, I was like, whoa, this is weird. Like, what was this? But that goes in with any trauma, anything that goes, is you got to slow down and go, is this even mine?
Yeah. No, totally. And that's a beautiful example. And it's one of the other workshops I do is around money as well. But it's sometimes if you're just hearing it and you're feeling the tension, so even if you're young, so one, you have that epigenetic aspect where you're absorbing it and you don't know you're absorbing it, but it's what we hear. I mean, if we took it away from money, it could be like, oh, the women in our family really struggle to lose weight, or the women in our family always get migraines, or it's, and so you have a migraine, you just accept that you have it, or you gain weight and you just accept that you're powerless. And it's not, it's just a belief. It's a limiting belief or an emotional block. And it's being able to shift that narrative that you think is set in stone, and it's not. And as you say, it's that mindfulness, that work that we do. Where am I feeling this, and why am I feeling this? Why am I so triggered by this? You know, and I think I was having this conversation networking yesterday. We're so used to feeling stressed, we don't question it anymore. We're just used to feeling stressed. But when we're stressed, we're dysregulated. And when we're dysregulated, we tend to react rather than respond. So it's being able to take that pause, going, actually, where am I in this? Where am I talking from? Am I talking from somewhere where that feels safe and comfortable, or am I talking from somewhere that feels dysregulated and fearful or lacking?
And the other thing is too, is to go on to, you know, how we're so used to being stressed and, you know, the go. And it's the calm. When things are calm, that's when it goes, oh, something's off. And our bodies like totally react, because this is not normal. We have not allowed our bodies to and that's the part where because I was the type of person all throughout my life to have 1, 2, 3 jobs at a time, plus this, plus that, you know, going to school or whatever. So I was very much go. And when I slowed down, because I had to, because again, we get to that point where you're almost at that complete burnout. I probably actually ended up doing it. Now, looking back at it, I could probably say I probably actually had that complete burnout. But I had to pull back on so many things. Like, I mean, friends, I mean, family. Like, I pulled myself back because I was like, whoa. But then that felt so uncomfortable to not be doing something. So that my identity is
full. Your identity is wrapped around with being achieving, and then there's a fear of failure. But also around that, I remember when I had my top 3 children. I had 3 children, 3.5 years. So it was really, really intense. And I remember going away for the weekend, going, oh, well, it's a weekend with my daughter, and I don't have all these responsibilities. I should be able to relax. And I was like triggered all weekend. I was like, what is wrong with me? I've dropped it. And I realized when I came back, and I think the universe drops things in. I was seeing this article about hyperadrenalization. And my body had been so used to living on adrenaline and in fight and flight all the time. Suddenly I didn't have any adrenaline in my body. And it was like literal withdrawal for 3 days, going, we're not used to this. We need the adrenals to function. Yeah. So we're going to make you feel really shitty because you don't have that.
You feel guilty on top of everything else.
But then also there is the identity piece around that.
Yes.
It's like, you're used to surviving at 100 miles an hour. And I think when I understand when I'm saying, let's have this somatic conversation, let's sit in stillness and meditate. and for especially people with a chronic illness, there's a real fear around that, a real discomfort. Going, what does that look like? Because I'm used to, my identity is about the yang, what I call the yang, the doing, the achieving, the getting from here to there. And I'm very left brain, and I can be very yang. And I have to really remind myself that the yin is not that feminine, the receiving, the slow, the being, the walks in nature. They're not just nice to haves, they're essential. And I think the world has been created where the yang is revered and acknowledged and remunerated, and
it's celebrated if you can do so much in a day. Like even just with the things I've done, I'm like, oh, look at you, check. I'm like, wait, like, where was the fun in this? Where was the slowdown in this?
Yeah, where is the flow, or where is the receiving, or the creativity, and all those things? So I'm very visual. So I have an image above my desk, my monitor, reminding me not to feel guilty if I go and walk the dog for 2 hours. I'm so much more creative. All my ideas drop in when I'm not working. So I have to not, working in inverted commas, I have to not work in order to progress.
And not run around. It's so funny how the society, like we said, achieves the things of us doing as opposed to achieves us for slowing down, especially as women. And I know there's the feminine or the chi in both male and female and stuff like that. But it's just for women, I think because society is very male dominant, studies even are more, on the male aspect of it. So it's like, oh yeah, well, productivity says that you should do this, this, and this. And I'm looking at it going, if I try doing that, I will be going to bed for the next 5 days trying to do what they did, because that's not the way I know that I work. But I never knew that until I stopped doing it. And it was very uncomfortable. Those years were very uncomfortable, very like, who actually are you? How do you move through the world, as opposed to how do people tell you how you move through the world?
Oh, that's so beautifully put. Because we spend, as women, we serve others. And then I often get to midlife going, whoa, I'm exhausted. My estrogen's dropped. Who am I? Who do I want to be? Or how do I want to achieve? Who am I? How do I feel about this? And we're just bypassed, aren't we? All that time.
Yep. And I just, it's in no fault of anyone's per se, in the fact of it's just, we need more things like this where we talk about and we make it public that, listen, you need to slow down to get that creative juices in. You need to have the fun. You need to add the breaks in between, because again, the doing, it's great. And no, you don't have a business unless you're doing something, obviously, but you don't get the ideas unless you slow down. You don't get the creativity.
Redefining what success looks like.
Yeah. And then that's it. Like, I think so many women, at least I know the ones that have become my clients and stuff, it's a matter of, okay, so I did all these things. I checked all the boxes. I did all the stuff that I was supposed to do. And I still feel empty, or I still feel a weight of like, what else is there? Like, why don't I feel like I've achieved anything? And it's like, because you went to achieve things that other people told you were part of your life, as opposed to sitting down and going, what do I actually want? And so with that, is there a form or a way that can help women, and I say women only because they're mostly my listeners, to actually get to that point, even if it's that 2 to 5 minutes of slowdown? Is there something that they can get a freebie from you or something like that, where they can go and learn something like this for themselves for those 5 minutes?
I think I did give you a link to a grounding meditation, but it's not 5 minutes. I think it's about 18 minutes. But within that, I think it's one thing I could teach. It's that grounding piece. It is taking your shoes off, going outside if possible, going on grass. And I'm a tree geek, and I use trees sort of metaphorically in my work. And just imagine that you have roots coming out of your feet and connecting to Mother Earth. Not only are you getting the negative ions and you're balancing, but you're balancing your root energies, which are all to do with safety and the nervous system and your immune system and tribal connection, belonging, the I am piece. So the more you can ground and balance that, the more you can do all the other stuff. It will resource you. But tree roots are often twice the size of their boughs. So if you're looking at the thing, the branches are that big, imagine what the root system is. And we need that to feel grounded. And I think when you can't get top heavy, you think too much, you do too much. And I'm very much, all my energy is up here. If I allow it to be above my heart, I want to process. I'm a very left brain. I like to achieve. I'm very here to there. I'm neurodivergent. But I have to balance that again with that yin piece, with that grounding of, I need to feel safe. That's why all my work is around safety, because of my past and my story. And that safety comes from grounding, walking in nature. And also the act of walking, if you're feeling stressed, it's telling the body that you're walking away from the problem. It's that left, right, as you know, is that crossing over the body. So I would just say, go outside, breathe, and send your energies down to the ground. But also to speak to what you were just saying about the stress and the doing, and it's not only who am I, it's also understanding the cost of that stress. So it's not just I can't with my kids, or I'm feeling a little this, or I'm feeling that. When your body is in permanent fight or flight, which it is when it's in stress, and it's an inconvenient truth, and it sounds dramatic, but if your body is in stress, it's having to achieve, it's having to do all the time, your body's in fight and flight. So to break that fight and flight down, I speak to them like modern tigers, the phone calls, the WhatsApps, the needing to be somewhere, the lunch boxes, the school runs, the football, the husband, the meetings, all of that, they're modern tigers. We're made to escape from the traditional tiger in the bushes. The blood pumps, the muscles tweak in the legs. You don't need to procreate. You don't need to digest. You don't need to think, really. You just need to run.
Yeah, you just need to get out.
Yeah, you need to get out to survive. So all those systems shut down. Your body is not on what we call homeostasis. There is no flow. There's one meridian in charge, which is the triple warmer, which is in charge. It's like the general going, right, guys, marshal the forces. We need to get out of here. The first one it takes from is the spleen, is the energy from the spleen, which is all to do with your digestion and your immune system and your blood. It's not allowed to take from the heart. It takes from everything else. That's where it gets its energy from, is literally getting all the soldiers. And when I was little and I was asked to draw a body, and I was drawing little people in my ears. So let's imagine it like that. It gets all these little inner soldiers and goes, right, you want to survive, mate, you're with me. If you're living like that permanently, your body is compromised and your body is going to get sick. And if you're not looking at the emotions around that, if you're not dealing with the anger, the frustration, the imposter syndrome, the worry, the fear, the anxiety, all those stay in your body. Emotions are energy in motion. If you do not address them and move them, they're going to stay stuck. You're going to get discomfort. You're going to get discord. You're going to get dis-ease, which turns into disease. So it's not just being stressed. It's really understanding, when I live like this, sounds dramatic, but I'm potentially shortening my life.
Very much so. And not only that, but you're affecting the people around you. Like, I know when I was in that state, like we call it the short fuse, we call it whatever. But again, like, my kids could have said, is this even mine? No, it's yours, mom. Like, stop giving it to me. And that's where we have to really sit down, because it's not just about us. It's not just about shortening our lives. It's what are we passing down to the next generation, and then some. And so those are the things that, like, when we can slow down, when we can read our body, like, first of all, stop and listen to our body before it gets to that dis-ease, get to the disease, then we can go, okay, what can I do today to help this for my future self, let alone the future generations?
And I think in all of that, no one's going to say to you, Heather, sit down and have a cup of tea. It's really hard. I'm going to do this. I think you do. No one's going to voluntarily, more often than not, come and do this for you. So, and I think I really feel this movement. I think this current generation of women, I think we're going to change things. We're cutting off that ancestral trauma. But it's about giving ourselves permission. And it's not like you deserve it, like we deserve the glass of wine or we deserve a cake. We need it to survive, and we cannot give from an empty cup. Because all that resourcing we're giving, especially my generation, where you've got elderly parents and you've got teenagers, and we're trying to juggle it all, you lose yourself, understandably. But it's having to go, I don't just have that ball to carry with the teenagers and that ball to juggle with my parents. I've also got me, and that's valid. And I'm going to give myself permission. I'm not necessarily talking about a whole weekend spa day, but it's creating boundaries. It's saying no, it's going to bed early. It's maybe not drinking every night. It's maybe looking at your diet, making little tweaks because you deserve them, because they matter, because you turning up in an optimum form matters, because we juggle so much.
Yeah, it's the same of like, give yourself, put it in your diary, put that 2 hours you want to read that book because you have been thinking about it for whatever, or you wanted to have that chat with that friend that, I don't know, it's been 7 months since you've seen them type thing. Put it in your diary like you would a business meeting.
And it's not a nice to have, it's a necessity.
Yes. Yep. And do not go, oh, well, that meeting wants to go with that. No, you say, nope, I've already got scheduled in, like my daughter's got her volleyball camp next week. Now, well, mind you, we're recording this in March, so that will be already done when this comes out. But it's one of those things where I was like, okay, no, I know I'm driving her and I'm picking her up. So in those times, I'm going to, that's for her. Why don't I do that stuff for me? That's the part where now I'm learning obviously better at it, but that's what the listeners, you also have to do is, I'm going to do this for my children and for my partner and for my whatever else. You also have to put those scheduled, like those times in your schedule as well, because they are just as important.
Because you tell your best friend to do it. You tell your twin sister to do it. Why are you not telling yourself to do it? And stop waiting for someone to give you permission, because they're not really going to do it.
No, because half the time it's like, a week or two goes by and it's like, oh yeah, right, about that.
Yeah.
Because
we don't need to model stress to each other or achievement or look how many balls I'm juggling. We know we juggle lots of balls.
Yes.
Let's model priorities. What would my future self thank me for?
Let's model hugging a tree and grounding ourselves. I'm that way too. Like when it becomes warm weather, like we had just 2 days of warm weather. It was like a false spring, but it was beautiful. And I was like, okay, outside, hug that tree. I stepped in a couple piles of snow, but I was still out there. But for like, that was the thing. Cause for me, anytime it's warm, like I am barefoot in the ground, in the garden, in whatever, because I know I need that grounding. I know that is such an important part, especially after the winter when I haven't been able to go out there and do that.
Nature is huge for me. When I'm lucky, I'm by the sea, but it's a huge leveler. And I had this conversation the other day about feeling support in the darkest of times, and I've had many. There's a whole other layer to my story that I've not shared, but you can't fall further than Mother Earth. I've had leg buckling moments, but she's got you. She's physically got you. And I think just seeing appreciation, 6 years ago, it was very dark times. What my husband has is called suicide disease. One of the balls that we juggle with it. And one of the things that has got me going through our darkest times financially and emotionally is just gratitude for the smallest things. And Mother Nature gives you that in spades. She gives you every day, even if it's snow, even if it's rain, or every day she gives you something to be grateful for bird song. And we've had horrendous rain here. It rained for like 45 days in a row. And I walked in it's horrendous, especially down in the south. We got it particularly badly. And I was in the wood the other day, and there was so much bird song because they were basically hiding, getting soaked. And it was like oh my goodness, we're out. Honestly, it was almost deafening. And it was just heart, even now I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. It was so heart lifting. So, and I've struggled, we've had cancer diagnosis, we've had lots of dark times in our life. And it's gratitude that has got me through that. So I think and then you have the whole piece about the neurons in your heart go from 40,000 to 100,000. We can affect our energy like that, even if we don't tap or we don't meditate. Even just going, what am I grateful for? I'm grateful in my darkest times that I have a washing line. That was my biggest thing, which means I have a machine that's going to wash the sheets that have been on my bed. I can afford the electricity, and the weather is nice enough that I can hang it out. Those are my biggest pleasures, hanging out my washing. When you have very little, it's the really simple things that matter.
Yep. And just knowing it took you the time, like you probably had to, it takes some time to get to that point of being able to be like, what are you actually grateful for? And it's, again, slowing down and understanding that, okay, yes, as crappy, as dark as this time is, right here, right now. And for me, I know some of the things where, what can I touch that I am grateful I have? Now, mine was, I have a computer that I can put my business onto. I have this, that I can do that. And it was just things that I had to make very like aware in my physical form. And then I was like, okay, now from there, next day, something different. And it always, I made sure that it was 3 things that were different. Cause like, I know there's a book or something about the 3 gratitude, like every morning writing 3 things that you're grateful for. And it changes the way that you work. And it slowed me down, because there was a few times where I had to really think about it, really slow down and think about, what am I grateful for today? Besides the fact that I do not want to be here today. Like,
or even if it's a cup of tea, or it's a flower, or it's birdsong. But also in that, not only are you expanding those neurons in the heart, but you're rewiring those neural pathways in the brain. If you can imagine, it's like a fork in the road, and more often not, if especially during dark or hard times, in its extreme, or even if we're talking about imposter syndrome or negativity, your brain is used to taking that right fork. It comes down, takes the right fork, right fork, right fork. But when you're gratitude, or you're looking at it another way, I mean, and when you're creating that kind of track, almost, you've taken that road so often that the other option, the left path, is kind of overgrown with brambles, and you forget it's there. And I think the tapping and the protector work that I do, and that gratitude piece, there's a left, I can think differently about this. And the brambles start to fall away from that left fork, and it becomes an option. So there are 2 equal forks. So you get to a point, and then your body goes, how am I going to choose to respond? Not react. How do I choose to respond to this event? Because I can go, oh my God, not something else. Universe, enough already. Or I can go, okay, as you say, one of my favorite sayings, right here, right now, I'm okay. And I'm going to sit in this fork in the road, and I'm going to choose which way to take. And let's choose what I'm grateful for.
Yep. And another big one that I've heard, and everyone I'm sure has heard, is, this is happening for me, not happening to me.
Yes. Yes.
So why, and again, it creates that slowdown. Why, what about this situation do I need to like learn? Do I need to choose differently than I did the last time this happened? Okay, now here's where I'm going to go. And again, it's that slowdown. It's that
mindful and conscious.
That being the present as opposed to futuring or being in the past. So,
and that's what that grounding piece does. It keeps you in that moment, because you're not being fearful. You're not coming from lack or fear. You're making a in the moment, mindful, conscious decision, which is all we ever have right now.
I was going to say, now is all we literally ever have.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
And we can worry about the future, but it's a negative prayer. So why would we do that? Just make that steady, grounded, safe, informed opinion.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And I think this is a beautiful part to add your 4-pillar finish with tips that, if they take nothing else away today and they just listen to these tips, which will also be in the show notes, of what is something that they can do for their mind, their body, their soul, and their home today, with whether it's tapping, the energy. Obviously, I'm going to guess grounding's part of it. What is something that
it's not actually. So I'm glad I mentioned it.
Let's hear the tips.
I think for the mind, I think acknowledging your protector parts. So a little bit like you going to the courthouse and it's telling you, don't do that, don't do that. The protector parts have served you well for a long time. It's what kept you safe at one stage. A little bit like the guy in the bush with the twig. It's kept you safe. So rather than rallying against it, you're better speaking to it. Thank you for keeping me safe, but let's have a look around and let's see if I'm still in danger. You kind of have to have a conversation with it. You have to ease it out. You can't suddenly flick it from one to another. So it's really acknowledging it and thanking the protector parts. I'm safe, I'm okay, but you've done an awesome job. For body, I think it would be the breath work, because when we're slow breathing, we can't slow breathe when we're in fight and flight. So when we're doing that slow breath, even if it's in for 4, out for 4, but ideally in for 4, out for 6, it then creates that calm. It speaks to the vagus nerve. It soothes the nervous system. I think the breath is very, very underestimated. For soul, for me, it would always be meditation. It's been a huge part. I've faced 20 years of adversity in lots of different forms, and meditation is what has kept me sane. And it is connecting to something greater than yourself, whatever you want that to be, whether it just be your higher self or your loved ones, or it could be angels or divine source or universe or Mother Earth. It's just not, it's believing that you're held. A little bit like I said earlier, you can't fall further than Mother Earth. A lot of the time people feel, when it's very dark and it's hard, they feel very alone. And yes. I don't, because I know I'm surrounded by loving forces and I'm held by Mother Earth. So I think meditation can really speak to that. And for home, I think it's understanding that old energies can exist, whether you've had a row or your children like horror movies, or there's a book that has, you know, like my husband, he likes to watch about mafia and just programs that I wouldn't watch. So it's like energies that aren't optimum. So it's about clearing those out. And that can be by drumming, by high vibe music, by saging, and then opening all the windows. It's acknowledging the space and the land around you. I think that's it. And I think, yeah, you've got a grounding meditation, and also there's a how to tap guide as well, which really breaks down. A lot of people go, I don't know what to say, I don't know where to tap, I don't know how to do it. So I've tried to make it really simple and break down that process of how to tap. So even if you've not tapped before, hopefully that guide will talk you through it.
Beautiful. And listeners, that will be in the show notes, along with the books that we did discuss. And if there is one last thing that you're like, you know what, before this podcast ends, I need the listeners to know this. What is there anything that you have, one last thing before we go?
You're loved. You're just loved. You're loved by everything that's come before you. And you're just surrounded by love, and you're enough.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much, Marilu, for coming on. This was such a beautiful, beautiful episode, and I absolutely know our listeners will be hitting those links for sure.
It's been awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.